Hey, what's up, guys? And welcome to the Napa City ranked numbers for the USA for all the richest cities that ever just come out here in Napa and around the cities. Well, we talk about like all the cities that we've been there for richest cities, like Vallejo and New York and Boston. I mean, New York and Massachusetts have one of those richest cities so far, and so does San Jose and San Francisco. But you know, it's been everywhere. We've never been there for top 10 for virtual businesses, due to all those expensive houses to become a lifestyle rich and famous. But it's been everywhere, Napa's last year was number 7 on 2021. But it's grateful when they have that richest city when Stone Brewing was around and my restaurant, and then plus the Bottle Rock, and then plus all of those great businesses they've grown so far during the pandemic. I'm like, how's that ever work? Because Spanish flu was the only one that's hits more in Napa to close in for business, like for Pireless since like 1918. I'm like, how's that even work? But but we can talk about that later if we can. So here we go. Okay, so Napa was really decent, like back in those days when they were like number 1,000 on the charts as the richest city of all time. But not just the richest city. It was seems a little big start. Napa was the big start before, but it hasn't been gone success more during business and during economics. The economics isn't big that much. But however, when you look at all of those charts, like the one that says 998, 997, like between 1847 when Napa was started, since the Nathan Coombs was the mayor, and there's 55 of them, everywhere is 55 because that's what the history says is in Napa, you know. It's been everywhere, but it used to be 54 from back in the past, and now it's 55, but, you know, we have to gather some big things, like Joe Techo used to be the longest, She's been everywhere, you know what I mean? So, so hope you can get used to it for all those great mayors that you need to collaborate and who are you like the most. You know what I mean? So, so here's the scoop. Like back in the 1850s, they were still seem a little bit large at this point when they were showed up. Like the ones like 995. Well, there was the same signature before it was the Finances store. Since like when they started to chip in 993 on the charts since like 1855, because there was a lot of markets going on for rich cities and everywhere from between markets and ranches and villages and corporations and industrials. Napa was an industrial city because they built in by the Americans to dissolve in before wineries come in. You know what I mean? Like Charles Krug. Charles Krug took over since like 1858, and that's when the charges come in like 988. They climb in pretty fast before Napa was a number one. Before Napa was a number one this year, they climb in like decently. You know what I mean? Like decent numbers. And they didn't have been collaborate so much like in the beginning in the markets, like beginning to the end. You know what I mean? This is what happens when Napa was an ups and down city. But the medium market of the richest city ever. It's not that bad. All of this, they're just carried for the same people. They have demographics and all that stuff, but it seems pretty small when Napa was like everywhere. You know what I mean? They used to have a African this famous church, but it's been everywhere. But and plus the Sartini Company, Sam Cake Laundry, used to have Abraham and Straws, and the ice cream place they used to have there. But before it was an ice cream place, that used to be like well, it used to be like sell one of those hot dog places that used to be around here in Napa. That's the first version that used to sell those when Blancos took over the place. It's everywhere, and a lot of immigrants from Europe, they came in there too, like Italians. And Chinese settlers. They've been there for like particle in the South Napa areas and all different areas in downtown. You know, this is when Napa was just started to become a baby city because Napa was a baby back then, but it has been grown up like bigger yet, like as a teenager or whatever. You know what I mean? Teenagers can take like in the 20th century and adult 21st century. You know, when you're trying to become an adult, be the major in the money if you're partying in Napa. You know what I mean? I know Napa has been grateful when they start lifestyle rich and famous, you know, but you know, times gets harder when it showed up, you know, especially in the 1860s. You know, 1860s when they started to have a wine train, they went at number 981 on the charts. Well, it's the richest city, but in the United States, but it's a good chart before the war that was been going on when they swooped in. You know, they kind of climbed in a little bit due to the Civil War, but Napa was the part of the economics that's been going on, especially when blacks arrived, Chinese arrived, and whatever those etc. parts that used to be around. But at the end of the time, there is a lot of markets that they blew it lastly. But the Napa General Store was been there for years when Napa was started. It's since 1847. You know what I mean? And plus the restaurant too for breakfast and stuff. They've been everywhere since 1847. Before they create like ever come up with the ideas for menus and stuff, but it's everywhere. Yeah, it's pretty cool. But at the meantime, in the 1870s, they grew up a bit pretty fast when they showed up. Except one of those charts that they even struggled at the time, like when Napa was a little struggled during having in the struggle process and everything in that's eventually due to the black people and the Napa neighborhoods. You know what I mean? That's why they built too much houses, they built too much commercials. They were in like 50-50, and then there's nothing new they can economic. After they bought Sargent Company, because Sargent Company was big in 1869, and they reached in 1966, but by the end of December. But it reached 1870 by 964, and that's not enough, because there is not enough room to take over to this big business in here in Napa, and it's not easy to become number one. Not easy, because the economics is pretty slow, and the process is a little bit too much commitment to excellence. That's not enough. What we have to do together is that we have to gather some room with all those people that they need to gather up, and that's the main reason why they had to come back into the charts, since like they did it from like 1883. 1883 was a good number when it come out in 960 to come back, because you know, struggle times in 1870s and 80s, they were just coming back a little bit when they got the Macy's stores and extra stores that can come out from during the 19th century economic markets. You know, we were talking about big markets, but Napa used to have those big markets before, but when small businesses gets pretty low around here in downtown Napa. But it's tough because I know it's everywhere, cost all the livings here in Napa, but it's not worth it. But we have to just decide what we want to do with this business, you know? It's not easy. It's not an easy part of the 19th century because there's nothing planned out. And plus, Napa High was an economic booming high school that has been done it before vintage, and every school's there just economic booming for like 30s to 70s. You know what I mean? But behind the oldest schools besides Napa High School was the Several Elementary School and then middle school. You know, those are one of the oldest schools ever seen. You know what I mean? So those are the oldest schools here in Napa when they started the name as Silverado, because Silverado was the name the oldest person that they donate the properties around here in Napa from like between when they started to become rich and to their properties and companies and distros like Magnavox Corporation. But Magnavox Corporation isn't big since like the 1900s, 20th centuries. But at the meantime, it is a lot of big answers. They grew up in the industries. You know what I mean? So this is what happens when every industries they just started in, they cannot make it go in. You know what I mean? During the affected in 1906 earthquake, it never happened in Napa, but did an economic growth in the early centuries, because that's what the numbers when they growth in like 1900s, when they go like 911. Well, that's the big numbers they were showed up, and in 1898, the biggest number of the 20th century was 918. It was not that bad at all, but in the meantime, they just started regrowth with what they has done. You know what I mean? But it's not that bad, but hopefully you guys could get used to it, all those great economics they've been started up, and something big with economic decently, you know, you just had to swing your levels of your well balanced in industrial businesses, so get used to it. 20th century is the same thing too, but the highest one so far since like 1999 was 360 on the charts. But that's big in the 20th century because Napa was been a ghetto for a while time, you know, since the wild years. You know what I mean? But they growth in a lot before they stopped it until in 1918. You know, the highest number so far was 520 on the charts, because the economic booming rises for Italians and Chinese and every people in the town in the 20th century. In 1917 was the highest booming ever. In 1910s was the highest in tens in Napa, because there was a lot of results of small businesses and a lot of results of economic industrials. You know, Napa was the industrial city because they grow enough before everything goes on, like in residential homes, to build more, a little bit more. But they've been a keep struggle time and process since like 1870s. You know, we talk about this. You know, there is a Spanish flu going on. When there's a Spanish flu going on, the market stops, and then the economics just slows down in 1918 when it goes back to number 600. Pretty crazy, huh? You know, this is what happens in economics started, and then economic went back since like, well, around like 1940s. And plus the Buttercream Bakery was the only one that started the business since like about 1948, and they sharped in number 660. That's a big business I ever seen so far. It used to be the small businesses, but it's a great big business I've seen so far for the years. But it's grateful when we see like Buttercream Bakery becoming number one. You know what I mean? They've been number one in the 50s, 60s, 70s. You know? Can't mess with the number one big businesses in here now, bro. You know? Blackbird Diner was number one too. You know, in the 90s. And 2000s in the cross. BurgerFi was number one too before they closed down. So does Stone Brew too, because a lot of people achieving in this era. You know what I mean? Like, they took everything from the earnest they have done to become a number one. You know what I mean? If they wouldn't have kind of done number one, if they keep the businesses like Stone Brewing or Buttercream Bakery or Blackbird Diner or Goats Roadside and Cole's Chop House, or every businesses they've been started up, you know, they flow in. That's the reason why the numbers of the 20th century was a ghetto vision years. You know, like the ghetto vision was never started since like 1968 when the number was like 384 before 70s was in the dead process, and 80s, you know. That happens. 90s too, because the process has been very slow when they keep it by flying fast, you know, like when they go down like in 1976 and 1977. Pretty crazy, huh? And they start going back to like 368 when Chuck E. Cheese was around, you know. Napa used to have Chuck E. Cheese, you know. I love that place, but I used to have there as a kid when I go to Vallejo. But it's weird when they got it here in Napa before they closed down pretty fast in 1990. pretty crazy. You know, it's about to have get a vision. You know, we don't want that to happen to the violence. We don't want what happened to we the people, because we're la raza. We don't want anything from the Chicano vibes. You know what I mean? Because we don't want to hurt the Chicano vibes. This is what happens. You want to have to stay rebuild and do what they can. You know what I mean? And that's what happens when market businesses, they have to go on, like after Spanish flu going on. It's always economics. And in the 2000s, in the 21st century, for the first time when he showed up, it went number 320 in 2000. It was big, but 280, 2001, 2002, 240, 2003, 200, 2004, 160, 120, 2005, 2006, number 100, 2007, number 60. The reason why there was 120 in 2008, because there was economic crisis going on, and plus they closed one of those businesses like Maryvans and shit, and there's different places they used to have like Radio Shack and shit, nothing that's going really well, you know what I mean? We've been talking about how economic crisis, they've been going up before when Joe Tejo was around. Joe Tejo, she was a great mayor. She's about economic businesses to help the business to provide for houses and everywhere. You know what I mean? That's a good way where we had the biggest start since like 2009. In 2009, they went number 20 on the charts. They were one of the highest FT businesses ever when they started up as the richest city ever. But it's a really good city. That is why you have to live there the whole time and end up like having wineries and having great food and great sponsors, great ads, great entertainment. Get used to it. And great DJs too. You got Super Surge, you got anyone in here, not that bad. But you got great people, and you got the people. If this city of Napa was already number 1 this year, get along, It's not that bad because 2010 was a big leap year in the number 20s of the charts. They're in the top 20s of the United States, of America. But it's not that bad. But you have to make this all up to you. You can't just get rid of that city. This city is awesome, I love it here. But to be honest, this city could be better than San Francisco, but because they got Bottle Rock. But San Francisco's already have too many economic businesses so far where they have extra growth. But at the end of the time, there's no economic that you can grow. It's none of my advice. It's none of any city's business. Do what the city's business, they have to do something with it. You know what I mean? It's something that had to do with all the Napa city ranks, It's something that had to deal with. But it ain't that bad because, because Napa was the top 10 city now in the 2020s because, Napa was never been in top 10 since 2013. And then they leap away fast since the earthquake. Since number 15 and number 20. But it's alright, earthquake happens, And they bounce back a little bit since number 18, 2017, number 9, 2018, number 7, number 4, 2019. That's it. And then 2020 was the number 5 during the pandemic. Yeah, But I don't understand why Napa never bounced back all the way big numbers during the pandemic. I just don't understand. I thought that they were just closed out so fast when the economic stops. I'm like, how did this happen? I'm like, how? It's weird, huh? But right now, during this business cost this year, we're number 1 in the United States of America because we have a growth businesses that grow on wines, and we have a growth business without attending company, without family-friendly people, without BS, without the gay members, We're grateful people now because we're we're just grateful. We're casuals. We're tourists. I think that's good. Like I think we can handle the same old people over and over. Not just like the people who came from like Vallejo or Benicia or Fairfield or San Francisco or from Oakland, San Jose or Sacramento or Sonoma or whatever cities they represent to, or they came to Napa. Napa came from the families from San Francisco, New York, or Massachusetts, or any kind of cities there that represent for the people in Napa who want to work there to become to this city to become number one. That's why they want to represent your own eternity and your grateful meanings for to give the gift for Napa as an earning gift. You know what I mean? Napa is such a great gift because I support Napa because Napa is the big heart of the city. And that's why we have to just get along and give their tribes in. And that's about it. And, at the end of the day, there won't be another Napa to expose to and get another one, number one like it used to be before. But I'm sure a lot of visitors will keep on going in the weekends, That's because every secret happens in Napa when they keep up. But Napa used to have a creek for a long time. But at the end of time, you still have to remember, keep focus on your ranks that you're having to keep up to the bigger businesses, small businesses, and bigger ranks to keep up the charts, It's never been behalf since like 2009. But you're gonna have to do better if you're part of the bigger ranking. Not just like looking at it all through those ghetto vision stuffs. You know what I mean? Ghetto visions, you don't want that. And plus the elder days when they used to have like bad economics or something like that, you don't want to do that either. That's when Spanish flu hit. That's a bad economic. Vallejo has a better economic too because every leap year they just keep going and keep moving forward because they got the amusement park and they keep buying stuff because we know Napa, we know Vallejo is a broke city. Can you make a difference? Of course you can, because when you look the charts in Vallejo, it's worse it can be, but it's a dangerous city, and plus it's too much economics too. Vallejo can do the same thing how Napa was. Pretty crazy. But right now, we're better than Vallejo and San Francisco and San Jose. So we did a very great job. But City of Napa and the crew and the rest of the supervisors and the mayor and everyone, you did a great job. I'm proud of you guys. They're grateful. Well, I'm just going to say thank you, and thank you for wishing me luck to watch this video. But if you don't understand it, just put the comments down below, or if you want to ask me some questions or whatever, if you know all the places so far when they ranked to the charts or whatever, or yeah, you can subscribe me too if you want, but it's up to you. I don't vibe about that, so just let me know if you can. So this is Z Lazarus C. Keep it Odyssey, keep it real.